Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to our panel discussion on student life and the unique journeys of Native American students in higher education. My name is Susan Lowe. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a wellness provider with Indigenous Circle of Wellness. Today, we are privileged to hear about the college journey of three of our distinguished panel guests, Jacob Pratt, Valerie Cabral, and Wildflower Robles Ontiveros. Our panelists will share their personal and academic experiences and discuss the challenges they face as Native American students. I encourage participation. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, as we do have someone monitoring them. And if it's really a burning question, you can raise your hand. All right, so I want to just start off by reading brief bios for each of our participants. We have Jacob Pratt here. He's a Dakota Ojibwe and is it Cote or Cote First Nation, Saskatchewan, Canada. Try to say that 3 times fast. Jacob's post-secondary education started at the First Nations University of Canada, which is the only Indigenous university in Canada. While he earned his Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, he earned his Bachelor's in Arts in Business Administration while in school. He started his first business, which was Mom D Performance and Events, which is how he worked through his years at school. After graduating, he moved to Los Angeles and started a Master's of Science in Social Entrepreneurship at USC Marshall School of Business. And while in school, he continued to work within the community and started Scoden Entertainment. This small production company produces content for clients, TV and film. They have created a mini series with APTN in Canada, 5 commercials for the Disney Channel and their own short films. The company continues to grow. In addition to running his own production company, Jacob is currently the program director for Native Ways to College and teaches ethnic studies at CSU Long Beach. Valerie Cabral. Valerie is an enrolled member of the 3 affiliate tribes, Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara. And please correct me if I mispronounce that.
Hidatsa.
And these would say it again. Say it.
Hidatsa and Arikara.
Arikara. I love that. Okay. From her mother's side, and Chicano from her father's side. She was born and raised in unceded Tongva territory, where her mother emphasized a connection to their own homeland during the summer. With a strong support system, Valerie earned her BA in psychology with a minor in holistic health from San Francisco State University last year in 2023, located on Ohlone lands. Am I close?
Ohlone.
Ohlone lands. Thank you. She took a gap year following graduation to engage in nonprofit work to prepare for her grad school. I'm happy to say and very excited to say that Valerie will be working on a dual master's in social welfare and public policies at UCLA in the fall. So congratulations, you're still on the journey, and I'm loving this. And while doing this, she has a small beading business that she dedicates to serving marginalized communities in California through her individual therapy and community services. And last but surely not least, we have Wildflower, Robles Ontiveros. Wildflower is a Gabrielena, a descendant of the people of Uchiminga and Chicana. She proudly holds the title of mother, sister, community member, and advocate. She was born in Los Angeles and raised in San Gabriel Valley in unceded Gabrielino Tongva territory. She earned her Bachelor's of Arts in English Education from Cal Poly Pomona in 2021 And during her Cal Poly Pomona days, Wildflower worked in the Native American Student Center as a social justice leader, where she had the honor of advocating on behalf of Native students, staff, and faculty. Wildflower is passionate about education and advocating for Native students and their families. And she was able to continue the work of her previous role as a resource coordinator with So Shinali Sister Project, and is grateful to now serve as Director of Education and Community Engagement, where she continues to support and uplift our community. So I want to thank each of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here and support support this project. So let's just get started with some questions. And let me get started with the first one. So for all of our panel members, each of you have experienced being a Native student, undergrad, graduate, and still on the journey. I'm curious, how many of you are first generation graduates? And this is one I see. Okay, Jacob raises his hand, Wildflower. Valerie raises her hand, Wildflower, not you. Okay, so two of you.
Do this, I know.
Okay, second generation, you said?
Yeah, I would say because my mother has a degree, so she worked through college. She did college, while we were young, but yeah, some people do, some don't, so I wouldn't consider.
So I'm going to ask you about a little bit about, especially being a first generation college graduate, because I think that journey is very unique, and the identity that comes with that is really unique. Okay, so open to anyone. What were some of the most significant challenges you faced as a first generation college student? And this would be for either Jacob or Valerie.
I can go ahead and start us off. So hello everyone, my name's Val. So as a first generation student, although I have an older sister that was very involved in my academic journey, she had her own life by the time I was an undergrad because of our 18-year age gap. So, when I entered college, it looked completely different than when she was in college. Just navigating the idea of college was really difficult for me, and I can go into specific difficulties I faced a little later, but no one tells you how to handle your own financial aid, what taking out loans really means for your overall financial health, or how to utilize the resources that are on campus. I could have saved so much time, energy, and money that had I gotten prepared. I saw my fellow first-gen classmates struggle with the same overall lack of knowledge of the university system, like our more privileged peers. And it's really important to remember that many first-gen students aren't just dealing with the pressure they put on themselves, but from the sacrifices their parents made so that they can be in that position. It feels like a responsibility to repay them, and although they want to do it, it's still pressure, no doubt. Some of my peers weren't even getting degrees for themselves or going for what they were passionate about, but going because of familial expectations. I saw a lot of my peers drop out because they didn't go for what they wanted, or due to following a path that their parents had chosen for them. So if you're unsure or going in undeclared, make sure you're dedicated to figuring it out. It's a road of trial and error, but it really builds your resilience to challenges tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you. And you said a lot. So we'll follow up on some of that. Jacob?
So the question was, what was it like being a first generation?
What were some of the significant challenges that you faced being a first generation college student?
I guess the first challenge you experienced, because I'm first generation on both mother's and father's side, like no parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, nothing. So like literally the first. You have nobody to look up to, right? You have nobody that's been there, done that, that you could ask questions, nobody to look for support or just advice. It's like blazing your own trail. It sounds like a really cool thing, blaze your own trail, but that's hard. You know, it's hard to blaze the trail. It's hard to be the one to step up and take those first steps. And I think that was the thing. And when you're, so I grew up on the res. I'm a little res kid. And I always tell people this, that when you're a little res kid and you see university, because you don't know anybody that's ever gone. You see university and post-secondary education as something that only happens on TV. You see that in TV shows or movies. That's where it exists. So it's not a part of your world, and it's not even on your horizon. So you have to push your limits, you know, the limits of what you were born into. Like, you're born into like this world. You have to go outside of that and push further beyond what you've experienced and what you've seen in your whole life, to be able just to see that that's a possibility, let alone going out there and, you know, going to school. So I guess the major challenge is just seeing that as a possibility, that you can do that, that you can be there, that this could be a part of your story. And I think getting past that is only the first of many, many hurdles you'll face as a first generation.
Wow, thank you. So you bring up a lot of good points too. So both of you brought up points about not being prepared, not having seen this before, looking at possibilities, you know, what's possible, how we figure that out. I'm curious, how did you figure that out? How did you create a vision to be able to pursue as a first generation college student?
I can go. I guess when I graduated high school, I graduated with the idea that I never have to go to school ever again. That was my perspective on the world. Um, and as I went about my life as a, you know, late teen, early 20s, I was doing a lot of different things. And I got into the community organizing, you know, working with my community. And I got into the point where I realized that as I was like I was literally starting programs and organizations and nonprofits, and that's what I was doing in my early 20s. And I realized at that point that I was lacking in my abilities. There was things I didn't know, things I didn't understand. And as I was doing all these things and knowing that I'm not up to where I need to be to accomplish the goals that I needed or that I had set for myself, I realized that the only way I was going to get to that point is by going back to school. So that's what kind of drove me. I realized I was insufficient to accomplish the goals I wanted to, and that the way I was going to get there was going back to school. So I didn't go back till I was 25.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you. So you realized that you had goals, and in order to get them, you might need to learn a few things. And looking at your bio, you've done a lot of things, and you're still doing a lot of things. So that's really helpful to hear. Valerie, how did you manage to maneuver that?
Yeah, so similar to Jacob, when I was a senior in high school, I was actually told by my counselor that with my grades, I wouldn't get into a four-year university. Like, she immediately shut that down for me. Um, you know, I didn't have the best grades, but now that I am diagnosed, there were learning disabilities there were mood disorders. I wasn't getting sufficient support from this administration for all my schooling years, really. Um, but thankfully, somehow, my sister, like I said, she was very involved in my academic journey, but more so in like pushing me to do it and then being like, all right, go figure it out. So she really encouraged me to apply to some universities, and I got into a few, but the only one that really stuck out to me was SF State. So when I got there, I was completely by myself. I did manage to find a roommate that was half Mexican, half native. So that was really cool. But really, I relied a lot on my friends who were also first-gen students. I relied on really just word of mouth. And then I would say by my sophomore year, towards the end of it, I was like, oh, I kind of get it now. Had been working for a student office on campus, and I learned how their department works. And I was like, oh, I can apply this to how the psych department works. And so from there, I really navigated the ins and outs of our student portals and our class planning. Um, and I can get into that a little bit later too as well. But a lot of it was just tripping and fumbling and stumbling as I went and just kind of prayed for the best. And somehow I graduated within 4 years. So that was a miracle.
Well, you weren't too traumatized since you're going back in. So I love it. I love it.
Can
So
I
I'm
share
gonna,
something?
yes,
Just
please.
in response to Valerie, her story where her teacher told her she didn't have good enough grades to get in. I remember in my last semester of high school, I didn't need grade 12 math to graduate, so I was basically graduating. But I figured, oh well, maybe I'll go to school someday. I'll go and I'll take this class. And I think it was like 2, 3 weeks into the class, the teacher came to me and she said, you know what? You should probably drop this class because you're not going to pass it. And some people are just not university material. So I was like, okay. And then I dropped the class and never thought I would ever go to university again. But like, I think that's a really common story for a lot of Native kids. We're underestimated, and as a result we start to underestimate ourselves, and I think there's more than me and Valerie that have experienced educators that have done that, and then look at us now, like we're probably going beyond where not only where they said we couldn't go, but probably beyond where they went.
Success is the greatest revenge. I love it. I love it. And I'm sure a few people can relate to that. I can relate to that also. So that is something. All right. So this question will be for Wildflower. Based on your experiences, what advice would you give Native students who are about to enter college or who are navigating their college years?
For this question, I think regardless of kind of like what university you're going to, if it's a 4-year, if it's a junior college, if you're living on campus or commuting, I think one of the things that I would suggest is finding a community on campus. So reaching out to a Native Student Center or an org or a club, or just finding some type of sense of community in that space with like-minded students. Maybe that's even students that are in the same major as you, have the same values as you, because a lot of times school, especially like if you don't have a ton of family members that have that experience of being in those universities, a lot of times it can feel very foreign. And having that network and that group of people to support on, it's mutual. You support them, they support you, and it really helps push you and kind of makes you feel less isolated in those situations. I think one other thing that I would recommend for anybody who's going to be entering college or is currently navigating college right now is to also, not just make a network with only students, but try to reach out to see if there's any faculty or advisors or folks within like the dean office that can also support. I think as a Native student, there were definitely a lot of challenges. There was a lot of things that are out of hands that was much more policy based, and to have someone of that position within administration, within faculty that you have a relationship with. So if anything ever does come up where you need additional support, you already have someone at that level where you can confide in and let them know that these are the issues that I'm having with so-and-so professor. These are the issues that I'm having with my specific college. And, it's not so much just venting with your friends, which is so important too, but also to have that resource of someone that can also go and support you on that level.
Interesting. So I'm going to kind of give a follow-up because one of the things I find when I work with young people nowadays, they're often very shy. And after coming out of a pandemic, people's social skills aren't quite what they might have been pre-pandemic. How would you suggest a student to be able to reach out and do that?
Yeah. Thank you. And totally agree, and I think one of the best ways that one way that was like helpful for me was getting involved with the student centers on campus. So I got involved with the Native American Student Center at Cal Poly Pomona, and really it just started as me going as a student and using their study space and kind of then I kind of worked to like kind of attending like some of their programming, making connections with the students there, and then also speaking to like the coordinator that was there that was very friendly. It was actually Elena. Elena was the coordinator at the time. So speaking with Elena, and I think a lot of those spaces and, the coordinators that are working at the different cultural centers, part of their role and their position is also to support students, right? So going into a space that expectation is already there and already set makes it a little bit easier to start creating those connections, start networking in that way, and start getting support. There was definitely times throughout my college career too that like, this came up or that came up, or I kind of had an issue with my professor, and being able to have to reach out to the coordinator at that center and voice my concerns, because I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable to voice that to like the dean or to voice that to like the chair of the college or the department or someone higher up, but it's someone that I could reach out to for support and validate some of the things that I was experiencing, and also support me in how do I now navigate that.
Thank you for sharing that. And I feel like you just laid it out very, very nicely and in a comfortable way because people have to work up to that. So thank you for that. Okay, I'm going to repeat the question for Valerie and Jacob if you'd like to. What advice would you give Native students who are about to enter college or are currently navigating their college journey?
That is that's such a loaded question because there's so many things that we can do and should do or might want to do. I love the comment that about finding your community. Like finding your community is like so important because like in the end, like it becomes more your community and the friends that you make your experience and your journey more than the education does. Like I have friends that are lifelong friends that I met in college where I have now nieces and nephews, from my college friends. And just my roommate, at one point we just got thrown together in this apartment, became one of my best friends, and she was my best friend, and then she started dating my best friend, and like, it was like, those relationships are really key to your success because you're away from home, you're away from your family, having those people that are your rocks, your people that you're like, hey, at like 11 o'clock at night, let's go get some Panda Express, and then you guys all just walk to the Panda Express. Those are very key things for you to establish while you're at university. And it's not always easy, it's meeting people that you have no idea who they are, and finding those people, and that's key to your success. Being involved in as much as you can at the university because that's your world. The university is your world. So like you work, you play, you go to school, that's what you do. Harold or Harrelson, he mentioned getting a job at the university. I did that too. I worked in the office of the president as a secretary at one point. I had friends that worked in the stores. I had friends that, I worked for one of our summer programs. That all helps establish you and gives you a lot of great experience. So like jobs, like your life is there. So like find ways to like find your community and then work within that place and like make it work for you. It's gonna help you along the way to get through from where you start to like graduating.
That was very helpful. So in addition to finding your community, working and really kind of getting established there and recognizing that some of the people that you meet are going to be lifelong friends or more. I love it. Um, Valerie, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this?
Yes, definitely. I mean, kind of jumping on what Jacob said, I met my partner and we are reaching 5 years this year. We were roommates in our freshman dorm and we're pretty much locked in. So I would also suggest if you can live on campus, do it. It's definitely a very different experience than anything else. For me, I was on financial aid. I took out loans, I got tribal grants, I did everything I could because I still feel like my living on campus was something I wouldn't trade, and I'm so glad I ended up doing it. Um, I would also suggest learning the ins and outs of your university and department resources. Like Jacob and Wildflower, I also worked on campus during my time, and it really made me so it unlocked a different level of comfortability for me on campus, the way I moved within academic spaces. It's a really great choice, so I'd really recommend doing that. On top of that, when you're researching their resources, there's support at the university to the departmental level. So make sure that you are scouring their websites and applying for all the scholarships and getting all the free stuff that you can. And also make sure that you study your degree plan, your degree track, your class planning schedule, whatever it may be called at your school. Because I have had many friends, even my partner, my best friends, had to stay in college an extra 1 to 3 years than they should have had they known how to navigate their student portal. They could have saved a lot of time and money. These same friends were working very closely with school counselors. There's no reason that they should have been in school for as long as they were. And so I say, do not trust the university. They are trying to have you stay there so they can collect as much money as they can. Even if you're working with a counselor, do your own extra research. I was able to pass within 4 years without ever working with a counselor just by really studying my degree plan. So that'd be my biggest thing. Save your money, save your time.
We are all about saving money and saving time. And I've never heard that before. So thank you for sharing that. That's something new for me. So this question will be for Wildflower. Can you tell us about a time when you had to advocate for yourself? And since that was something that you did, I'd like to know if not you, for somebody else too.
Yeah, you know what, I'll speak a little bit. So while I was a social justice leader at the Native American Student Center, I was actually brought on board to the hiring committee for a new dean of students. I was one of two students on the committee, and I was the only student that identified as being Native American. So with that, it was a very long hiring process, but it was also very rewarding and very exciting because as the dean of students is so critical to like life, like in so many areas, like life on campus, like resources for students, the way that the cultural centers are set up and the resources that we have for our students. It was very important that students' voices were heard. So I appreciated Cal Poly for looping in myself and another student to actually be a part of that hiring committee. And some things that came up was just listening to the prospective hires and their interviews. We did multiple rounds of interviews and just really thinking about their responses and thinking about the needs of the Native students on campus and ensuring that whoever came into this position is not only going to be a good fit for. There's so many different folks on campus that need support and so many different students and populations, but making sure that also that it would be a good fit for the Native American Student Center and someone that is going to be a safe place, right? Someone that's inclusive, like who's careful about the language that they use, not to use certain idioms, not to use anything to further harm or alienate our Indigenous and Native American students on campus. So I did have the privilege. There was a couple times where I was like, I don't like the way that they said that. that can be really harmful right there, you know? And it was being really mindful, and I appreciate the college for pulling me into that and giving me that opportunity, and also, you know, for the other colleagues. And really, it was all, you know, like faculty and administration, but also being so open to my input as a student and really honoring kind of like the knowledge that I hold and that I, you know, held at that time, and thinking about like, how is this person going to be able to support our Native students on campus? And especially thinking about recruitment and retention, and what ways that they're thinking of supporting our students.
That's powerful. So in hiring a dean, that's powerful. I wasn't expecting you to say that. That's lovely. Oh gosh, Valerie, what are ways that you had to advocate for yourself or for someone else while you were in school?
Man, when didn't I? Unfortunately, as Native people, the idea of having to advocate on our own behalf and our communities is just a very common and shared experience, amongst many BIPOC groups. Specifically, a defining moment for me in college, was when a white holistic health professor challenged who I was and our people at our core. I was actually working for SSSP at the time, and Wildflower and I were in the office together. And I ran out to tell her right after because I was so flustered, angry, and honestly, I was kind of sad and embarrassed. So where to begin? So this man was pushing 80, and should have retired yesterday. But he was still there because a lot of the white students and faculty were big fans of him, despite how problematic he was, of course. Anyway, he would assign us controversial topics from all around the world, and ask us to engage in discourse during class. So this day, we were discussing the wellness industry. And he had asked for our general thoughts on the article he had given us. So no one had volunteered, so I decided to start it off with my take. And I had said that I found the article to be out of touch because it came off as in support of exploiting Indigenous lands and their medicines. I discussed how white sage is disgustingly overexploited, literally having its own black market. Let's see. So the point I ended up at towards the end of this discussion was that Native people should have sovereignty over their traditional lands, which would in turn protect many sacred medicines that we see going extinct today, which is causing a whole myriad of other issues, climate issues specifically, right? He ended up going on this rant about how settlers ended up here fair and square, that how we were not truly on Native land, and just continued to argue with me for about 5 to 10 minutes, which is a very excruciating long time over Zoom in front of 60 other students. So to avoid the boring details, I remember just holding my ground, staying level-headed, which is very difficult for me as someone who's diagnosed with a mood disorder, and just kept hitting him with facts and counters to any ignorant statement that he tried making. In that moment, I realized how important it was to be informative and not let my emotions and feelings, which were super hurt, be the thing. Sorry, I didn't want my emotions and feelings to be the takeaway from that conversation. You know, I would suggest that if you're going to take on a professor, which you shouldn't, I am just very stubborn. You know, if you are going to, for some reason, make sure the knowledge is what your peers are going to remember from that interaction. All that to say, a bunch of people ended up messaging me privately from our class group chat, and apologizing to me on behalf of his ignorance, and saying these really super nice things, which made me feel so much better after feeling really overwhelmed. And shout out to Wildflower for supporting me after that, because I was so flustered. And yeah, and unfortunately, this experience is not new to our people. And unfortunately, in higher education, it's gonna persist. So it's good to go on with the tools and knowledge on how to prepare for that.
Well, I am also sorry that you had that experience, but I know it happens, right? It happens a lot more than it should. Oh, well, I'm glad you had Wildflower too. And I see, and so this is the reason why we really need to find our community where we're at and create our community. So thank you for really, and I know it was a very personal story. So thank you so much for sharing that. Let me come off mute. Did anybody else want to add to that about advocating?
I will.
Jake. Mm-hmm.
So, I have a very interesting story. So I went to the only indigenous university institution in Canada. And at one point there was issues between the university and the executives within the university that end up the federal and the provincial or like the state government pulled all the funding from the university. And that meant that we had enough to finish out our semester. And then in that following April, the school was going to shut down because the school was going to be unfunded. And the administration there was a whole big bunch of things that had to happen, all these different things that had to happen for the federal government and provincial government to reinstate the funding. And the executives, the faculty, everybody pulled together, and students supported them, and they did everything that was supposed to have happen. They worked everything out, and they're like, okay, we can get our funding back and we'll be back to business. And all the students were really happy. And the federal and provincial government denied the funding. So the only university, it became a very political thing. And at that point, our faculty, our staffs, our interim executives, they had no more that they could do. So what happened is it came down to the students. So we started a protesting. We started protesting. We did marches on the Capitol. We went to the provincial capitals, went to the federal capitals, and we protested at every place and talked to all the politicians, having direct face-to-face meetings with the politicians that were the ones that held the purse strings. And we even lived in, like, we did a live-in. So we lived in our university for 77 days. It got to the point where, our students, it was probably about half our student population was living in the school. And to the point where one time after being there for, I think it was like 15 days straight, never leaving the school, I went home to sleep one time and realized that everything I had was at the school. My PlayStation, my TV, my blankets, my pillow, and I didn't have anything at home, so I just went back to school and kept living with my students. We had our Easter there. We had little kids that had their Easter. We had, the news was really upset with us one time because we had, Easter egg hunts and Easter breakfast brunch at the university, and we didn't invite them. But we lived there for 77 days, and we had a very big, robust social media and communications campaign that reached nationally and internationally, that was bringing in a lot of support. And we did everything we possibly could, and then there was, April came, when our funding was still gone. April went, our funding was still gone. We stayed at the university still. They couldn't do anything. They had to keep, we lived there, so they couldn't kick us out. We lived there. And then we're about 3 days away from taking more drastic action. Our university was right next to a major freeway, and we had one chance to talk to the one of the leaders within the political system that was the head of education within the entire province. and we had one chance to talk to him. And if he wasn't going to give us out our funding back, we were going to set fire to a van and push it over and off a bridge and onto the freeway. That was our plan, because we had gotten that far that we were going to start taking far more direct action. And we went to this provincial meeting where the director of education was, and the politicians were funny people, because they'll smile, shake your hand, give you a hug even, and then turn around and blindside you. And we learned that over the 77 days that we were dealing with them, that it was always an up and down kind of struggle. We thought we got somewhere, and then the politicians would backstab us. And this was our chance, and our spokesperson was not there. They were caught in traffic or something. And this education director came along and saw a student standing there, and shook one of our students' hand and then tried to get away. So I went over there and I stood in front of him and I said, "We need to talk." And then, of course, the news at that time really knew who we were, and everybody kind of swarmed around us. And he started making all the typical, "Oh yeah, we're doing our best, we're trying to do this for your students." And then he made a mistake, and he said, "We're doing the best we can for you students." And that was what I was waiting for. And I said, "Actually," and then he tried to like shake my hand and walk away. And as he shook my hand, I grabbed his hand and I pulled him back in front of me. And he looked at me very shocked. And I said, "Actually, if you want to know what is best for our students, you need to ask us, because we will tell you what's best for us as students. And the best thing for us is to keep our school open and reinstate all of our funding. Until you listen to us, you're doing what's best for you and your politics, and not what's best for the students." And that little snippet kind of blew up and went national all over the place, even went international, that news story. And that next day we started planning our direct actions, not our political actions, our direct actions. And that morning we got a call from his office saying that they were reinstating our funding that day.
Oh my goodness.
Just before more stories went out, because then they came to talk to us specifically, and to me and all of our other students. So our time to advocate for ourselves was not just advocating for ourselves, it was advocating for our faculty, it was advocating for our staff, it was advocating for every student that would attend that university from that point on. And that university we got all our money back. We got every dollar back after that. As soon as the provincial government gave us our money back, the federal government quickly followed suit, and we saved our university. And it was our entire student population was mobilized, and we lived in our school. We were ready to push to push vans off a bridge. That's how serious we were about it. Students have far more power than they often realize. We were just a bunch of little residents that
Wow.
were at university, and we realized that we had a power that couldn't be stopped. And we became nationally and internationally known. Like our core group of people that were kind of leading it. We could go anywhere in the country and people would know us. We're on first name basis with our presidents and all of our professors, and because they quit seeing us as students that they're there to teach, but seeing us as fellow colleagues. And I think that was our big time to advocate for ourselves and future students.
That's amazing. Like this is the first time I'm hearing that. I had no idea you were going to say something like that. That's huge. And it does show not just advocacy, the power in numbers, the power in knowing information. I feel like Valerie was really saying, like, you really have to know how things work. We need to not be emotional. And I hope you guys saw that Lucia put in the chat. We're not advocating violence per se, but advocacy is important. Unity is important, and standing up for our rights and not accepting no. And the fact that you got everything funded, I mean, 77 days. 77 days. That solidarity is amazing. So I feel so blessed just to hear that story, because I think that will inspire a lot of people. Hopefully it won't come up against the whole school being shut down, but we do know that there are situations, deans, teachers, policies that just don't support us. And so how important it is for us to advocate and to advocate in numbers. Thank you for sharing
Our
that.
faculty and our staff, our instructors were there to support us the whole way. You know, they were helping us. You know, we were in a funny way, we were actively practicing everything that they were teaching us. You know, you learn about a lot of different things, and you learn about history, how this group, you know, fought against oppression and did this. So like we were putting in practice their actual teachings as we were going along. You know, and then like even though our school was closing, we still made it a point to attend class every single day.
I love that. Lucia, I have not looked at the chat for questions. Are there any questions from anybody? I see a lot of wonderful comments. Jacob, so I hope you're seeing like about solidarity and standing up. A lot of beautiful comments for you. Do we have any questions? No questions?
No questions at the moment, but just
Okay.
for our students and parents that just joined, please feel free to put in your questions into the chat or to chime in. Thank you.
So, okay. So the next question, we only have a few more minutes. So I am gonna go in with Valerie. You've already graduated with your bachelor's last year, and then you'll be going to school in the fall. What do you wish that somebody had prepared you for before you got to school? What
As,
is Mhm.
sorry.
No, good.
As a Native student, I would say I wish that I was prepared to be completely out of my comfort zone in academic and workplace settings. I was really nervous, super anxious, but I ended up finding my people and continue finding my people. Um, Sorry, lost my place on my notes. Continue finding my people with each semester. I would say to Native students that are entering or currently in it, be excited that you're being pushed out of your comfort zone, because it means you're going to evolve in ways you maybe haven't thought of, and meet people that you wouldn't have met in your hometown. You know, for me, with my college counselor and teachers, mind you, telling me, you know, oh, maybe college isn't for you. I have reached academic levels that I would have never reached had I continued to abide by their mindset and how they thought of me. And putting yourself in a college position, you will experience things, you will face things, and your resilience and capacity for challenges are going to grow. Also, I wish someone told me that you have to be the one to push yourself, because professors, I swear, do not care if you do or don't turn something in. If you don't communicate with them, they will let you fail their class. And I know, because I was a TA 5 times and I plan on being a TA again in future years. But always remember just to continue to speak up for yourself and our communities, while also listening and uplifting other BIPOC relatives. This comes with learning to pick your fights. And this is a big one for me. I'm talking to myself. I come from very stubborn and vocal parents. So meaning I was used to exerting energy over every little thing, every little comment, everything that really rubbed me the wrong way. Not every ignorant statement from faculty needs a reaction. So save your words for your next assignment, because that's what I did. Sometimes I put it, you know, in my assignment, gave my 2 cents about it, or leave it on their rate my professor. Better yet, report it. Let the administration handle their responsibilities. So yeah, that's what I wish I would have heard.
That's really good advice. Thank you. I'm going to ask the same. Flower, what advice do you wish that you had that you would give somebody else that's going through this journey?
I think for me, and this is just speaking off my own experience, but I would say for me that it's not a race. That a lot of times we go and the idea is to go as quickly as you can and just like rush through, get as much as you can done. And I think in that sometimes like I wasn't taking as much time to really appreciate all the things or really like be grateful for like where I was in that time. I was just focused on, okay, what can I get done? When can I get done? When can I get done? And I think in that too, my journey is a little unconventional as well. I didn't do the 4-year track. I started at a junior college, and I went from junior college, then I transferred. I was a transfer student, and then I went to Cal Poly Pomona. And I think part of it too is like constantly comparing yourself to other folks throughout the journey. Like, oh, these people that I graduated with already have this degree, and I'm still here like waiting to transfer. And I think sometimes that kind of little voice in your head, like that you've heard in the past, that you can't do it, that you can't succeed, like you keep comparing yourself to other folks, and that's not the goal, is to compare yourself to other folks. It's really to continue to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And that journey of education is whatever way that it's going to go, as you keep working to your degrees, that's a success right there. Like being in school another semester, learning, like maybe you didn't get the best grade in an assignment, but you really enjoyed that class and you had a fun time, like that's a success too. So I think one thing that I wish I would have prepared myself or gone in knowing is just to not put so much pressure on myself and really to enjoy the experience and not compare myself to other people or my academic experience to other people. Because I think that's when I would kind of like experience burnout, like it would kind of stem from that. It's that I was putting too much pressure on myself and I was thinking that I wasn't good enough because I wasn't to where I needed to be in my academic journey. And that's just not the case. Everyone's journey is different, and we go at different speeds, but that doesn't mean that we're not succeeding and we're not moving forward.
So be gentle with ourselves, huh? I love that. I love that. All right. Well, we're almost at the end of our hour, and I just want to thank all of the panelists. You guys have been really, really wonderful. Like this conversation was so rich on so many ways. I almost wish we had another 30 minutes to keep going, maybe at another time. So thank you all for taking the time out of your schedule to be here and to do this. I recognize everybody's time is valuable. I just want to leave space for if Lucia has any announcements or any announcements about Native Ways to College and the services. I know the Indigenous Circle of Wellness, we provide wellness services to the students. Hopefully all the students and the parents that are here know that. So we're here to support you on that journey to college. Are there any announcements that Native Ways to College has?
Yes, we do. Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much to all our panelists for sharing your stories. Very powerful, all of them. Well, certainly, I echo your thoughts, Susan. Waiting in 30 minutes. But thank you. Just very quickly, for our families and of course Indigenous Circle Wellness, all our panelists, we're going to be having our family gathering at the UCLA Powwow coming up in May 4th. So we'll be sending out invitations for that, and you're all welcome to join us that day. As well as for our seniors, we'll have our senior awards ceremony on June 8th. Again, you're all invited, and specifically something really special that we have for our seniors coming up in May as well is our senior photo shoot day. And we'll be taking your headshots, and you can bring in your regalia if you have your your beaded cap that you've been working on, and just, cords that you've been awarded already for your academic achievements. We encourage our seniors to please bring them in that day. That's happening May 18th as well. So lots of really great stuff coming up. Thank you for those that have joined us this evening. I know you guys jumped in a little later than I see, as that Ashley has been recording this session. So this is going to be available, be circulated for students and parents on our app. And Susan, Monique, thank you so much. We'll be sending out this to you guys too, to have as a resource. and just sincerely appreciate you all. Thank you so much. It's been really insightful, and there has to be a podcast in the works. Somebody has to start.
I'm telling, I mean, yes, this was so powerful, so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Definitely my pleasure.